is with us now from Tel Aviv. He served as the international media advisor to the president of Israel, Isaac Herzog, also a veteran of the Israel Defense Forces. Thanks for being with us once again. I want to begin with this family, the Bibas family. We are hearing mixed reports that this mother and these two little boys may not be alive. There is no confirmation on that. Is there anything more that you can share about their well-being?
Now, these are really horrific claims by Hamas that the family are no longer alive. And I can tell you that I, like everyone else in this country, is very, very, very angry. For over a month, that image of Shiri Bibas with her two adorable little children being abducted into the Gaza Strip have become iconic of Hamas's crimes against humanity on October 7th, when they brutally abducted 240 people into the Gaza Strip, including a 9-month-old baby. What kind of sick monsters abduct a 9-month-old baby? What kind of sick monsters hold a 9-month-old baby? What kind of sick monsters might then have traded it away to a different faction, or murdered it, or allow him to die through negligence? Now, we are investigating these claims. The IDF has been in touch with the survivors of the Bibas family in Israel to update them about these claims and to investigate them. And if this turns out to be true, we have been very clear: there will be nowhere to hide for any Hamas terrorist who harms so much as a hair on the head of Israeli hostages. We hold Hamas solely responsible for the welfare and well-being of those vulnerable hostages, and we are demanding that it release everyone immediately and unconditionally.
I know the family of those little boys and the husband to that mother is holding out hope that this is not true, and we will wait for that confirmation. Confidence that you have in this latest group of hostages that will be released today. We're anticipating 10 more. Will any Americans be among this group?
We're on day 6 now of the hostage release pause. It was originally meant to last 4 days in exchange for 50 women and children, and that has since been extended. The arrangement on the table is that for every 10 hostages Hamas releases, we will grant another 1-day hostage release pause. We've lined up more than enough violent criminals, Palestinian violent criminals in Israeli jails to be released under that framework, should Hamas decide to continue releasing those hostages. I can't comment on the identity of those who we hope are on their way out. We'll comment on who they are as soon as they are safely in Israeli territory. And we hope that Hamas will continue releasing our hostages. And when Hamas stops releasing hostages, we will stop the pause, and the fighting will resume to pressure Hamas to release everyone, all the babies, all the children, all the women, all the men, all the elderly, all the civilians, all the soldiers. There will be no one left behind, because the only thing that has brought Hamas to a position where it is releasing hostages is the unrelenting military pressure of the Israeli Defense Forces against Hamas. We've clobbered it. We've had Hamas begging for a breather. That's why it's releasing hostages, and we'll continue ramping up the pressure until it sends every last one home.
And how much of that pressure includes the release of men, those wounded, and also soldiers as a possible next release of this group?
We are going to apply all necessary pressure to ensure that Hamas releases all of the hostages, all of them, including the men, because their lives are worth no less. The families who are coming back now to Israel are arriving to broken worlds and broken families. We have not only children who are being sent back, having been orphaned with at least one parent murdered on October 7th. The last batch of children released all returned without their fathers, who are still captives in Gaza, still hostage. And of course, it's impossible for these poor children who suffered so much psychological and physical abuse in the Gaza Strip, to begin a process of healing. While their fathers are still the hostages of the people, the army of terror that brutally beheaded, burned and raped so many people on October 7th. So I can promise you this: the moment Hamas stops releasing our hostages, we will stop the hostage release pause, and we will up the pressure until we get everyone home.
What are the discussions happening around, and I hear you when you talk about resuming the military pressure, but funding right now being discussed in Congress to provide continued aid to Israel is on the line. What are some of the discussions around that, when the conditions that are being asked to be applied to that would include an end to some of the, as they call it, some Democratic senators' indiscriminate bombing that would be tied to any aid?
Well, I don't think that's a condition because, as an allegation, that is false. Israel has, for the last month and a half, been conducting a very precise campaign in the Gaza Strip, going after the monsters responsible for the October 7th massacre. And that's why we spent a month before the ground operation urging civilians to get out of harm's way temporarily for their safety and move south of the Gaza River. That's why, after encircling Gaza City, the Israeli army opened and secured a humanitarian corridor that was attacked by Hamas in order to allow civilians to leave. The sad fact is, what we're seeing in the Gaza Strip now is that the IDF is having to destroy Hamas infrastructure that was built deliberately under civilian areas. Hamas built tunnel shafts that poke out under children's beds, missile silos underneath little girls' mattresses. They've converted mosques into rocket factories and schools into launch sites. And in order to target that terror infrastructure, we've had to get civilians to move out of harm's way. And we're having to deal with this infrastructure embedded underneath civilian areas. And of course, Hamas and Hamas alone, which declared war with the October 7th massacre and chose to wage that war from inside densely populated areas, from inside areas it tried to prevent people evacuating from. We hold it fully responsible for all loss of civilian life and damage to property in the Gaza Strip as a result of its war.
Israel has stated its ultimate goal is the complete elimination of Hamas. Sinwar, who is operating the military arm of the terror group, is thought to be still within Gaza. How difficult will it be to take out a top leader of Hamas, knowing that there are likely others who have been recently released from prison as part of this exchange are willing to step up in his place?
This is going to be very difficult. No one expects that the task ahead of dismantling the Hamas terror state is going to be easy. But the October 7th massacre left us no choice. Because on October 7th, Hamas brutally murdered 1,200 people in the cruelest way imaginable, entered the Gaza Strip with 240 hostages, and then immediately told us that it wanted to do it all over again and commit as many October 7th massacres as it takes to murder every man, woman, child in the country. It was the straw that broke the back of a very strong camel and has convinced Israelis left and right across society that we have no choice now but to totally destroy Hamas, to go after every commander, every terrorist, every rocket launcher, every tunnel, because otherwise it will commit more barbaric savageries against our people like it did on October 7th and like it is telling us that it plans to do again.
Yeah, they've been very clear about their goals, dangerous and deadly, and we've already seen it play out. Eylon, Levy, as always, you're generous with your time. Thank you. We'll speak again soon.
Thank you, Mani. Anytime.